I'm Jim with Marine Electronics Installation. Today I'm here to talk to you about what to look for when you're buying a new or used boat. As far as the electronics go, if you're purchasing a boat new or used, you need to be sure there's plenty of room in the dash for the electronics that you may want to add to the boat either at time of purchase or later on. A lot of times gauges and electronics radios are put in a dash where there's not a lot of additional room to add. Another thing you want to watch for is be sure if you're going to add a radar at a later time that there's a metal plate if you have a fabric top or bimini top that's welded into place so that you can mount the radar in. If you have a hard top, just be sure that there's no obstructions blocking the area where a radar would be. Another thing to look for is bilge pumps. You want to make sure you have at least one functional bilge pump, but a second backup bilge pump is a huge bonus. We see a lot of failures in bilge pumps, float switches, wiring. It's a part that's continually submerged in salt water, gets a lot of heat, vibration. These things fail all the time. A backup is not necessary, but a really good idea to have the backup bilge pump. You want to make sure that's in the boat, or at least set aside some money to put the backup bilge pump in if there's not already one there, especially if you're going to use the boat offshore. Another thing is you need to make sure that there's room for adding fuses in your fuse blocks if you're going to add electronics. Make sure they're not already completely full. We see this a lot in new boats and used boats both. Make sure there's plenty of room behind the console or the dash where you can add another fuse panel or at least replace that one with a larger one. Also need to make sure that there's not really small wire feeding that fuse block. If we add something to it, we may need to replace the wire on it. So that's another important thing to look at. Another one is batteries. One pet peeve of mine is manufacturers and dealerships that put batteries down in the bilge of a boat. If you have an offshore boat or even an inshore boat, the last place you want your batteries is down in the bottom of a bilge. If you have any kind of water leak, those batteries can go underwater quickly. If they're wet cells and the water gets inside, it'll destroy the batteries. Even if they're not wet cells, once a battery goes under in salt water, a lot of your pumps will quit working, radios will quit working. You may or may not be able to start your engine to get home. A lot of problems with a battery being in the bottom of the bilge. If the battery is installed in the bilge area, you need to make sure that it's up on a shelf or bracket or something fairly high above the bottom so that it does not get flooded out easily. Center console is a good location for batteries also, but just not in the bottom of the bilge. That is just a horrible area, and I've seen that on quite a few new boats. Another thing is access panels and hatches and access to your wiring, pumps, live wells, bait well pumps, bilge pumps. We see this a lot. We get into a boat, we get called out to replace a pump, and we get to the boat and we open everything up. There's no access to the pump. It's extremely difficult to replace. Sometimes something that should take 30 minutes ends up taking hours. This can add to the expense of ownership. It's a lot more in labor to replace things when you can't get to them. It can get real expensive over the lifetime of the boat. A lot of times we end up cutting access panels in areas where there's pumps that are going to need replaced every 4, 5, 6 years to try to save the owner some money down the road if he's going to keep the boat long term. So access panels for electronics, your pumps, your wiring, this is really important, and even a lot of new boat manufacturers, some of them do a really good job, but a lot of them do not. We find that a lot. There's a lot of areas we've cut new access panels to reduce the time or make access to change something that was impossible to change without a panel put in. So hopefully this helps if you're shopping for a boat. These are some areas to look at as far as the electronics go. Hopefully if you can find a boat with everything that you need that fits all of this criteria, it will save you money in the long term and make it a lot easier to maintain and work on. Thank you for watching.